What's up, everybody, and welcome back to One Fan's Opinion. I'm your host, Neil Curtis. This is my platform for offering my opinion on the Carolina Panthers and North Carolina Tar Heels, and occasionally I'll talk about some other sports as well. But today I'm going to talk about the Carolina Panthers and the NFL Draft. Carolina will be selecting number 19 tomorrow evening when the draft kicks off in Pittsburgh at 8 p.m. They've really done a lot of work this offseason kind of set themselves up for that whole best player available option. There's a lot of different directions they can go. We'll cover some of those, and then I'll kind of wrap it up at the end with what I would do and kind of basically what I hope the Panthers will do. Make sure you stick around. I think it's going to be a really good episode as we dive into some draft prospects. All right, welcome back once again to One Fan's Opinion. I am your host, Neil Curtis. Thanks for rejoining me. I had started this podcast back up last year, thinking that I was going to be a little bit more dedicated, a little bit more committed. Also thinking the Panthers were going to be a little bit better than how they started this season. Took a couple losses, kind of got into a position where you just kind of get to that point where you're like, I can't keep talking about this team, the way they keep playing, the way they keep losing. So kind of turned things off for a little bit. I never really got back into it. Fortunately, the Panthers did get back into it, really pick things up towards the end of the season. They did stumble a little bit right at the end. Managed, though, to back their way into the playoffs thanks to an Atlanta Falcons win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then had a very competitive first round loss to the Los Angeles Rams, which is a pretty good sign, in my opinion. The Rams did go on to play a very tough game against Seattle. Thought they were going to win that game, to be perfectly honest, and ended up losing. But Seattle went on to win the Super Bowl rather easily. So, you could kind of look at it where the Panthers lost to the Super Bowl runner-up, because if the Rams had gone to that Super Bowl and played New England, they probably would have won that as well. So definitely trended upward and in the right direction to close out the season. I'll have to say this offseason, free agency and the draft definitely going to be pivotal for the Carolina Panthers moving forward. I really want to see how they do with free agency, see how they're going to do with the draft coming up. So go ahead and start talking about some of that. Kicking off first with some free agency. Just a quick recap on what they did. Signed a lot of the people, very active, but some of the bigger names, bigger moves that they made were to address a very definite weakness that they had in the middle of their defense, namely at linebacker. The defensive line played really well this year, especially against the run. The edges played much better than they had the year before, but still need a little bit of a boost there. Outside on the corners, they played really well. Mike Jackson and J.C. Horn playing well there. And then even kind of over the top, Jerome Mooring played really well, brought in free agency last year at safety. And then Lathan Ransom was a very good late round rookie pickup who contributed a lot this season and really helped out this team in some pretty tight spots. But when it came to the linebackers, it was definitely hit and miss. You had Roseboom, who was the epitome of a hit and miss type of linebacker. He was either a heat-seeking missile who would come in and absolutely destroy a ball carrier, destroy a running back, or chase down the quarterback, or he was just an errant round that would go completely astray and miss the ball carrier altogether. So I need a lot more consistency and a steadier hand there at linebacker. And Dan Morgan really went out and I think got the job done with that. Agreeing to terms with outside linebacker Jalen Phillips to help improve that pass rush. And then signing linebacker Devin Lloyd to work there in the middle, really help gel and bring this defense together. Also provides a little bit of pass rush oomph as well. So two really good signings there that are going to help elevate this defense, I think, in 2026. He also went and had to rebolster the offensive line, losing Cade Mays to the Detroit Lions and Yash Nijman to retirement, and Ike Ekwonu blowing out his patellar or his kneecap, really, in that loss to the Los Angeles Rams in the first round. So signed offensive tackle Stone Forsyth, kind of as a backup rotational tackle, and then eventually signed offensive tackle Rashid Walker from Green Bay as a starting left tackle. Played really well there in Green Bay, so looking forward to seeing him in Charlotte. He's only on the 1 year deal though, so we'll see how that goes. And then signing center Luke Fortner to come in. He'll probably be starting with Mays gone now, and Austin Corbett gone as well. So some really targeted, very deliberate moves there for Dan Morgan to help this team out in the offseason and really set them up for the draft so that they can kind of go in any direction that they want to go. They brought back some other people that I think a lot of folks will be glad to see. Linebacker Claudine Churlis will be coming back. He has some nice moments as a rotational backup. Safety Nick Scott will be back in for the Panthers. And then they also have wide receiver Jalen Coker was tendered as an exclusive rights free agent as well. So some good names there. It also moved on from Andy Dalton, that backup quarterback, and we'll be putting in Kenny Pickett as a backup quarterback moving forward. So kind of an interesting move with that one. All right. With that said, like I mentioned, with all those moves, the Panthers really did a pretty good job at setting themselves up for this draft, and they could go in a number of directions. So what I want to do first really is take a look at all those kind of a few different scenarios with what they could do at pick number 19 and what that means through the first 4 rounds of the draft, and kind of the dominoes butterfly effect of taking certain positions at number 19. Okay, so like I said, the Panthers have done a pretty good job this offseason to set themselves up to kind of take the best player available or really kind of choose from across the board, variety of positions with the number 19 pick in the first round. But this year's draft, I really feel like is a little bit underwhelming. So I've been following along a bunch of different podcasts. I like to listen to guys like Trevor Sickerma, Connor Rogers on the NFL Stock Exchange. They take a look at this stuff basically starting in June, and they go all the way up until right now. And a bunch of other stuff, listening to Underdog, reading some of the bigger headline guys, folks over at ESPN, Bleacher Report, stuff like that. And really the general sense I get going through this year is just that to me, this draft feels like a round behind, where even the first round players, these guys getting drafted in the first round, you read through their strengths, their weaknesses, what they project to be in the NFL, and they read a lot like second round players from previous drafts. And a little bit more context to this, NFL Stock Exchange just did their 7-round charity mock, and they had the guys on Max and Dalton from Preferred Walk On, who sat down the other day and did a kind of a mega draft where they took eligible players from this year. They brought in who would be eligible next year and who would be eligible the year after that, and brought them all into a big all eligible draft. And in their first 10 picks, 7 picks came from next year's draft class. That's looking at this year's tape, looking at the prospects who will be eligible next year, looking at how they perform now, and how they performed against the players who are eligible this year, and 7 of them were chosen in the top 10. So it kind of goes back to my thought where, like, really people, 3 guys in this year's draft really are kind of like in that like first round, really make a difference, top 10 kind of elite tier. And then after that, it's a drop off. And most of them kind of profile as late first round or early or into the second round type of prospects. And so from there, you have a cascading effect where everybody feels like they're kind of being drafted around ahead of where they should be. So not exactly in my opinion, the most exciting draft to be covering this year. So I know I haven't really gotten into it as much as I normally do. I normally like to uh, watch some video on at least 3 to 4 prospects from each position group. I really didn't get a chance to do that this year, mostly from just life and having to deal with everything that goes on, but also just because nothing really like stood out. Nobody really kind of separated themselves from the pack. Every player has, just enough foils, just enough negatives that they're all kind of even. It's really just going to kind of break down to the GM and the coach in the room, and who, between 2 guys, no 2 guys, like between 2 guys at the same position. I don't think anybody's really done a lot to separate themselves. And it's going to be like, all right, who do we feel most comfortable with? Uh, so, as I said, the Panthers, I think, did a good job setting themselves up to take a number of different routes this year. And I wanted to take a quick look at 4 different scenarios. The first one being if the Panthers went round 1, pick 19, wide receiver. There's a number of guys that are projected to go in the first round. And by pick 19, 2 or 3 of those are off the board. Um, Makai Lemon, sorry, is probably considered by most people one of the top, if not the top, 1 or 2 of the wide receivers. He's usually off the board by 19. And it kind of boils down to, after that, Omar Cooper Jr. From Indiana, or Casey Concepcion, being usually the top wide receiver left by 19. So in this one, I went with Omar Cooper Jr., a little bit of an older prospect, 4-year player at Indiana. I played with Fernando Mendoza, was a preferred target there, and had a really nice senior season. However, like I said, reading through a lot of his profile, not exactly the type of receiver that really jumps off and really catches your attention. Just kind of a very good, very solid and steady receiver there. Again, to me, kind of reads like a second round prospect. Continuing in this draft, in this scenario, I got really lucky, I thought. Stuck at pick 51, and somehow Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker from Texas Tech, fell to the Panthers. Don't think that's going to happen. There's some people who think he's probably going to go in the first round. He'll probably go early in the second round. And if I had to make a guess, Dan Morgan has moved a lot moved around a lot in the second round. Last year he traded back, then kind of traded back up. The year before, he traded out of the second round into the first. So he is not afraid to move around in the second round. And he's got 2 fifth-round picks that are back-to-back picks that I think he could use one to try to move up in the second round. If somebody starts to fall a little bit and he thinks he can get up and get to him. And I think a guy like Jacob Rodriguez, who plays hard, plays with his hair on fire, has that dog in him, and is really great at anticipating the play and really great at reading what's going on with the offense, and has a really good knack for generating turnovers. Might be the type of guy that Dan Morgan could jump up for. But in this situation, I got really lucky and he fell at 51. From there, round 3, went with Jake Slaughter, center from University of Florida. Play by reading and looking at his PFF traits, plays a little bit more of a gap scheme, or not a gap scheme, a zone scheme for the running game. Carolina usually leans a little bit more gap, so a little bit of a learning curve there, but had really good pass the pass rush defending grade there. So I think, given Cade Mays being out, not super excited about Fortner coming in. Jake Slaughter, I think, could be a really good pickup here to develop over the course of the season and eventually take on that starting role at center. And then after that, I went left tackle. I'm going to probably pronounce it wrong, but Demetrius Crownover um, from Texas A&M, who profiles as a right tackle, but with a little bit of versatility to play left if needed. And I think for this season in particular, where Forsyth is basically your only backup behind was it Wallace and Moton, probably need some more depth there. And really, I think we need to start developing a right tackle now, because Moton is starting to trend downwards. He's been a stalwart at right tackle, been a fantastic Panther, but he's been getting injured more and more frequently and giving up more and more pressures and sacks over the last couple of years. I expect that trend to continue this year. Next year is his last year um, per his contract, but he may be ready to start turning things over by probably partway through next year. So I think it would be very good for the Panthers to get that right tackle of the future in this draft and start developing them now. And I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that later. Another situation that comes up a lot: drafting safety. Dylan Thieneman is a big one for this position. Caleb Downs, obviously, in this draft, the top end safety. Thieneman is largely considered the next best option, but also actually a very good option as well. And there's some expert picks and a lot of community consensus for Thieneman there. So I did another run, took Thieneman with the number 19 pick. At 51, Chris Bell had fallen, a dynamic yard after catch pass catcher. Good hands, catches away from his body. Very good at even kind of catching underthrown and reach back balls, which I feel like Bryce Young throws kind of a lot of, in my opinion. You see, I think that's been one of the gets like issues. Really, like he gets them on target and he has a little bit of trouble, but he really has a lot of trouble when he has to reach back for some of Young's not as accurate passes. I won't call them inaccurate because they're still on the receiver, but they're a little bit behind or a little bit high. And McMillan has done a great job of being able to correct those. And I think bringing in a guy like Chris Bell could help correct that as well. Again, number 83, picked up Jake Slaughter. Once again, I think 83 is a perfect spot to pick up a center in this draft class. And then actually ended up going with the same left tackle again, Demetrius, yeah, crown over for an A&M. So one of the other more popular options is for the Panthers to select Kenyon Sadiq at number 19, bringing another first round pass catcher, which in my opinion is just not the way to go for this draft. We brought in 2 first round pass catchers already. I've talked before about how much we have had to pay for the Bryce Young pick, not only in the initial pay of like giving up a wide receiver, that now we've had to go back and draft 2 round 1 receivers and now maybe a third, but the other, the round 1 pick in the following year, the second and the third, and all that stuff that's gone into it, giving up Brian Burns and not being able to re-sign him to a contract because we've had to sign and overpay contracts to bring in offensive linemen to help protect Bryce Young. That I would say like an average offensive line hasn't been able to do the job for him. Had to like really double down and beef up our offensive line to protect them. Spending already, like I said, 2 first-round picks on wide receivers to get him, top end receiving talent to help him out. And now this year we want to do it again. This is how many more picks do we have to make, or how many more, contracts do we have to overpay to compensate for Bryce Young and to like make him, a competent, capable quarterback in the NFL. But this is a popular pick. Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon, very fast, athletic, really tore up at the combine, and could be, kind of probably like upgraded, better version of JT Sanders, who's also supposed to be a very athletic tight end. And it's had his moments, but really hasn't quite panned out the way I think anybody was hoping. After that, in the second round, this is the only scenario where I did a trade back or did any kind of a trade really. I traded back and went back to 61. And in doing so, I managed to pick up pick number 93 as a result. But I went at 61 with Trayden Stokes, a safety from Arizona. Again, placed kind of help out the middle of the defense, in particular at slot corner. So our outside corners have played really well. Slot interior nickel hasn't been quite as strong. I think bringing in Stokes, can actually help that out a lot. Then at number 83, I went with Caleb Proctor, who is a defensive lineman who's been kind of on the rise from a smaller school, but is one of those kind of like weird picks I think Dan Morgan has liked to make over the past couple of years that maybe surprises everybody. Maybe not everybody was tracking, but could actually be a pretty solid pickup to help out the defensive line. And then again, see his name over and over again with me. Jake Slaughter, center from Florida, this time at 93. And then at the very end, pick 119, I took Kayshawn Elliott, inside linebacker from Arizona State, just to help, again, kind of provide some backup there over the middle of the defense at linebacker. And finally, one of the last ones I looked at was beefing up the defensive line. Not seeing this one as much, but had seen it a little bit more often at the beginning of the whole draft, mock draft process that people started a couple months back. It's kind of died out a little bit more. And I think people are leaning more and more towards the tight end, wide receiver, and safety look. But this was one that was coming up pretty frequently before. And this one I took Peter Woods, tackle from Clemson, who's had a pretty good couple of seasons and would help out alongside Derek Brown. And then at 51, I went wide receiver here. So I'm not opposed to bringing in some more wide receiver talent. I'm just not excited by the fact of using another round one pick to bring in a wide receiver, especially when, like I've said, I think a lot of these wide receivers outside of Lemon and really just Lemon, don't profile like round one wide receivers, in my opinion. So I would much rather do it in the second round, maybe the third. But in the second round here, I took Jeremy Bernard, a wide receiver from Alabama, and another good yard after the catch type of receiver, and can really help, from the slot, picking up some extra yardage, which is something the Panthers have been missing a little bit. Then at 83, I finally departed from the Jake Slaughter pick and went with Caron Crawford, an edge from Auburn, just to provide a little bit more rotational support there. And at 119, kind of wrapped it up with that Demetrius Crownover, again, offensive tackle. I really think one of the focuses of this draft has to be the offensive line. We need help at center. I definitely need help at tackle with depth and for planning for the future. If we don't bring Wallace back next year, will Icky, taking a year off and kind of trying to reset him, will he be a player that the Panthers want to keep on the roster after that? Or will they be looking to move on to a new tackle? And then, like I said, Taylor Moe, kind of making sure we've got his backstop because he's played so well for Carolina. We don't want that to drop off. We want to make sure we have the right guy coming in to back him up. All right, everybody. So I want to take a moment, or a few moments, to go through a 4-round mock draft here, using a site called Stick to the Model. Just discovered it a few weeks ago, listening to the NFL Stock Exchange. Prior to that, I used PFF quite a bit. I really liked their model. I liked their AI, but with the layoffs going on over there, and kind of moving away from the the fandom part of it, and really doing stuff for fans. I was ready to move on from them. And after finding this one, this is really great sim to use for your mock drafts. I think the AI is pretty good, and the layout, some of the features that it has, I also really like a lot too. And then beyond just doing a mock draft, you can do so much more up here at the top. You can see, you get player profiles, look at teams, uh, stuff with betting. They also do things for fantasy, and they have a feature where you can basically be the GM of whatever team you want to be. You can control things like restructuring contracts to save on cap space. You can cut, you can sign, you can do all that stuff, and then obviously you can go into the draft as well, and then you can just keep it going throughout the year and kind of craft the team how you would like it to be. So really cool page. Like I said, I'm going to do just a 4-rounder. I'm going to kind of keep the speed up so we can get through the other picks. We're not controlling, and kind of keep the randomness down, but just a little bit there to keep it interesting. All right, so let's kick off this draft. Hopefully it doesn't. All right, great. This is working. My first time using these platforms, so hopefully this keeps going well. So as you can see, you get set up here. Off to the left, you've got the teams and their picks, and then and then on the right, you've got players. Really cool feature. Highlighted are team needs. So all the positions are laid out, and then highlighted team needs with their biggest need to the left, a little less needy on the right. And then pretty easy to kind of match it up with the same colors over here on the right. Quick way to kind of filter out by position if you want to look for a specific position. And then you've got this really nice little feature right here with a redo button in case maybe you clicked the wrong guy or you have second thoughts, and you want to go back and redo that. You can also, if you click it, you have the option to redo your last pick, or you can just redo the entire draft. Obviously, start and then trade. You can click to trade and initiate your own trades, or you'll see it here in a minute where it will pop up a little number and it will give you proposed trades. So, without further ado, let's kick this thing off. I think we know who our first pick will be, Fernando Mendoza, and it is Sonny Styles to the Jets. So, there's that randomness kicking in already. Pretty interesting. And we get down. Look at this. So, pick number 19, Carolina Panthers are sitting there. Got some pretty cool stuff here. For Stick to the Model, they have edge as one of our biggest needs, followed by safety, wide receiver, and tight end. I won't put edge as our biggest need. I'd put safety over that. It does not have offensive tackle highlighted as one of our needs. I think it is a need, as is center, and then linebacker as well. So we'll see. Then it gives what the community is picking. 47% picking Peter Woods. This is what I talked about earlier. Like defensive line, kind of a big selection here for the Panthers at 19. What the AI model says, oddly enough, offensive tackle is one of the first picks for them to be taken. So pretty cool there. And then you come back over here, you see your guys laid out. Kenyon Sadiq, I think this would be a lot of people's preferred pick. You've also got, let's see, who's a couple of Denzel Boston has come up a couple of times. And then, as we mentioned before, Omar Cooper Jr. So these were the receivers who were kind of left over at 19 to be drafted. None of whom I'm really excited about drafting in the first round after already taking 2 first-round wide receivers. You can see down here bouncing around is our 2 trade offers. So you can click on that. And not only does it give you what the trade offer is. So Arizona would get number 19. We would get 34, so fall out of the first round and get a future pick. But it gives you how close to fair and a good deal this is. So you can click this. It pops up. It says it's a fair trade. You're looking at the points that you would want to get out of the trade. 278 would make it perfectly even. This one's worth 277. Not 100% sure which point scale they use. It could be the old Jimmy Johnson one, but I'm not sure. And then you can accept the trade if you want. I honestly am not accepting this trade. I don't feel like dropping out of the first round, especially to pick up a 2027 second round. I'm not going to do that. Not super excited about New England's. Don't want to go all the way back to 31 either. So you can have the option to create a trade, but I'm not going to trade. Not for this one. Again, I'll go back. This is what I would do. So I think offensive tackle is a major need. After Wallace and Moten, it's Forsyth and I can't remember. That's it. I don't know who else is sitting there at tackle who can come in and provide those guys rotational relief and in case one of them get injured, backfill them. So I would rather have a strong rookie tackle come in that still could use some time to develop and get better, but can use those opportunities coming in and backfilling, giving those guys a break to do that and to develop. I think a couple of names stick out. Monroe Freeling was definitely one that I would have looked at. He just got drafted to the Raiders at 18 after what looks like a trade. Yep. So you can click on him and pull up all his stats, how he did. Look at his metrics. For this one, you can actually compare Freeling's metrics to the average. You get all of his information. You can see trends on where he's been getting drafted and see how he's climbed. And then you can get some stats, but this part looks a little less fleshed out than other places. And it gives you a nice rundown on Freeling and how he's played over his years. As it talks about here, he can play both tackle spots and has SEC experience doing so, which is something that appeals to me, is trying to find a tackle who has experience at both spots. Freeling would probably be, if he were available, my choice here. But I think another great option, who's a little further down on most boards, but I don't think is too much of a jump, is Clemson's Blake Miller. So we pull that guy up, 6'6", 317, a little slow on the 40, but a really nice RAS score. Metrics projects above average in all of his metrics. Everything here looked pretty nice, a little slow on the burst with his dash, 10-yard dash. Has moved up over time. And again, is another prospect who has got some versatility at both tackle spots. So this is the type of person that I was talking about, type of tackle where he could come in now and he wouldn't start, but he could immediately backfill either tackle position, and provide some relief and rotation at those positions. And if one of them goes down, I think you would feel comfortable, especially after a few games, plugging him in to start at those, probably over guys like Forsyth. So I think having this level of tackle, um, would really help out the Panthers and be a really smart investment. And most of his experience, it says only 2 career starts at left tackle. I think it's actually more than that. Um, but he's most of his experience is at right tackle, so he could do that, do the backfill both positions this season, and then next season really start focusing on taking over for Moten, on the right side. So this would be my pick, at number 19. If you could trade back a little bit, like not all the way to 31 with New England, but maybe 5 picks and still be able to pick him up, that would be great because then you could get another pick and him. But I'd be just as comfortable drafting him here at 19. So that's my pick, number 19, Blake Miller. All right, run through this. Getting into the second round at 51, like I said, I think this is a pretty good chance where, Dan Morgan could trade up, use one of those fifth round picks to try and jump up 3 or 4 spots if he sees somebody that he really wants to get his hands on. But he could also just stay put. And I think looking right now, there's a handful of players I feel like, that would make for a really good selection, for the Panthers. Two of the ones that I would have no problem at all are already gone, though. Jacob Rodriguez, like I said, I don't think he'd last to 51. This would be a kind of guy that this is a perfect example where Dan Morgan would want to jump up to try and get him before somebody else did. And then Jeremy Bernard, I think, is another, good pick, in this range. Good wide receiver out of Alabama. Unfortunately, division rival Falcons, grabbed him up first. So, who over here would be a pretty good spot? Well, first let's check our trades. Vegas wants us to drop back to 67. San Francisco would have us drop back to 58. This is a really good trade by their measure. But I don't want to do a trade in this. I want to just kind of stick where we're at. And like I said, I feel this is probably more of a trade up position for Carolina. So, got Gabe Akis, edge from Illinois, who's got a lot of really good buzz going for him and has a really good high motor. Jake Golday, from Cincinnati, I think is a really nice, fit at outside linebacker. He plays, really well in coverage, too. So I think that would be a really good boost again to that middle, of the defense. And then if you wanted to pick up some offensive firepower, you got Eli Stowers, tight end out of Vanderbilt, and then Chris Bell, wide receiver out of Louisville. Traden Stokes is also available there. You could pick up a safety. So again, this is this is where like I think this year's draft really resides. It's kind of in the second round. There's a lot of second round talent, including, and here in the second round. So, um, I think any one of those picks would be pretty good. I still think we need some help in the interior of our defense. In this situation, I think I'm going to go with Jake Colday, the linebacker from Cincinnati, just so he can. I know it says outside linebacker, but I think he would, do really well. I think it mentions he's also played, a little bit in coverage and has the ability, to play sideline to sideline, and has, also kind of played a little bit of a nickel role, as well. So really good player here that I think, let's see, exercise and athleticism, elite range, dominated as a run defender. Um, yeah, this guy reads like a Dan Morgan guy, in my opinion. So we're going to go with Jake Colday. All right. Now we start getting a little bit into the third round where Again, it seemed three of my past mocks I picked up Jake Slaughter. We'll see if that happens again. Maybe. So who we got? Um, Bogan Jones, center from Iowa, is a good option. And then, yes, again, you got Jake Slaughter, a center from Florida. They're continue to backfill that offensive line, get it prepped, get ready so that next year you don't have a major drop off. You can keep the talent young and honestly cheap. And then, because you're probably going to have to figure out a way to pay Icky, which that means you got your two guards and Icky on bigger contracts, having a second year center and a second year right tackle with some well developed talent, I think would be a good position to be in for next year. Although I would like to have a good cornerback, but I'm not seeing ones jump out at me. So yeah, I'm going to go with Jake Slaughter again. Um, Sam Hecht is another uh, name that comes up about this range, but I just like the way Slaughter profiles. Um, he's been uh, playing with Florida for a long time. He's got grades that says here PFF grades hover around in the 80s, which is an elite side to be on. Exceptionally quick, makes all the protection calls. Again, another really good thing for Bryce Young to have. Even though he's got that experience, I think it's good to have a center who can back him up on that kind of stuff. So we're going to go with Jake Slaughter at pick 83. And then it'll take us a while to get to 119, but this will kind of round out and finish off my draft. And let's see who we got. It could go fun and go Carson back there. Again, you can see over here too, the team needs are highlighted, and those things that aren't team needs are grayed out. So again, another really cool way that this simulator is set up. So Jason Kilgore, safety from South Carolina. I have seen him pop up several times. I really like the way this guy profiles. Um, Hybrid defender. He's played free safety, strong safety, slot corner, and will linebacker. So he's played a lot in the interior of the defense. I've already kind of really worked that, I think, with Golday. See if there's somebody. Oh, there's Demetrius Crownover again, but we already got our offensive tackle taken care of. We got Takario Davis, cornerback out of Washington. You could take a look at him in a second, or one of the, I think, Draftnik's favorites, Dante Corleone out of Cincinnati. So let's take a quick look, see what they say about Takario Davis. Super productive, high-end tackler, pass deflections, 23 career pass deflections. So let's see, metrics. On the higher side for his 40-yard vert broad jump, so some pretty decent bursts and speed. Trending a little downward. And let's see, 3 interceptions, 25 passes defended over his 36 games. So pretty solid cornerback. While I think they played really well on the outside this past season, I also think it would be good for Carolina to get some more depth at the outside cornerback position. J.C. Horn, I think, has now had multiple concussions. And when that starts to happen, and you start getting into the multiple concussion range, things don't get any better. They just keep getting worse. Honestly, in this situation, I would be torn between Takario Davis and Jason Kilgore. Yeah, those would be my picks. I don't want another fourth round tight end. I I honestly like our tight end room the way it is. Would a round one tight end be great to get? Sure, but I don't like I said, I don't want to invest another round one pick in a receiver. Um, Guard, not a huge need right now. Center, we already took care of that, and offensive tackle as well. Linebacker took care of that. Dante Corleone would be an interesting pick at this position, but I think Cam Jackson still has some development to go, and you want to see where that goes. And you know, this might be a little early for Corleone. So yeah, I think I actually will end up. Let's see, Carter Davis one more time. Yeah, 6'3", 194. That fits the Morgan profile for a big cornerback that can move quickly, 4'4", 1. So we're going to go with Dacario Davis, put him on the outside, and provide some backup to Mike Jackson. I think Mike Jackson's contract is up after next year too. So if he doesn't come back, then we've got Corleone, or not Corleone. We've got Dacario Davis there. So here, another cool feature here at the end. They'll give you a draft grade, B minus. That's fair. I know I took Blake Miller a bit early. Probably took Jake Slaughter a little bit out of line, but really, actually, they didn't like the Jake Golday pick very much. Although he also got best value, so I'm not sure why that's the case, unless it's the outside linebacker position that really they didn't that kind of downgraded it to a C plus. And then yeah, the biggest reach there, Blake Miller for sure. All right. This thing will also tell you position runs. Cornerback went on a run. There was a run on quarterback 3 times. Defensive line edge always runs for that. Tackles definitely runs, and you know we were right in on the tail end of that. It's a pretty cool way this kind of breaks everything all down. It will give everybody else their grades, tell you where you fall out. So a lot of B minuses on this one, or B pluses on this one. Where did we end up? There we are, B minus, which actually in this draft was the worst grade to get. All right, let's see. And then if you want to, this is another cool feature. I should have done this during the draft to show this. You go to the war room. It shows you your picks. It shows you what you need, and then even cooler, it shows you your current roster lineup. It's not 100% accurate. I've noticed things that I would probably move some people up in different spots. It also, let's see, like if we go to our defense, you'll notice for our linebackers, Pat Jones, Jared Bartlett, Devin Lloyd. Devin Lloyd's all the way down in the 3rd spot. He's definitely going to be up. Right outside linebacker, Paulo Monwasa. I don't even know who that is, so I'm not sure if he actually is on the team. But you look through this, and no sign of Nick Scorton or Princely Mondialen, or even Jenna Carter. So it's kind of interesting. Maybe not the best, but it will usually show too if they think your pick is a little bit better than some of the other ones. So they've got Nick Samick there. But like I said, left tackle, Icky, Rashid Walker. Well, I was saying Wallace before. I meant Walker. And then Stone Forsyth. Then you got Taylor Moton. And then after that, there was nothing. So we're definitely going to need to pick up a tackle, in my opinion. Again, grades over here. So pretty cool feature, I think. Pretty cool thing. You can do a share. You can save it and enter in a contest. The share feature, I think, is pretty nice. Let's see. Choose what you want to share. My picks. So you can copy it or save it. And then I'll pop it up. Once it decides to finally download, there we go. Open it up. Thanks, McAfee, for keeping me safe. And you get a nice little graphic. There, it's not going to show you. You get a nice little graphic um, of your results. So, again, that's just my opinion. I really think they need to focus on making sure that offensive line is good to go this season and next. Fix that interior of the defense, provide a little bit of support on the outside. Um, yeah, I could bring in some pass catching help as well, but I think they've done a lot of that in the offseason. So that is, like I said, my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. You can leave comments, chats, things like that. And I guess that'll be it for today. And I hope you guys enjoy the draft. I know I'm looking forward to it. And I'll catch you in the next video.